welcome back to All Things Lord of the Rings with your host Alex, also known as Solinus Dracone. This week, we're going to take a quick break from moving forward to review the elven lineages and such. It's at about this point in the series where people who are just joining might find it a little difficult to keep up with who was whose father and so on and so forth. So today, I'm going to cover the family lines of the elven lords up to the point in the story we were last at. Call it a refresher. So we start off with the first three elven lords. Elwë, Ingwë, and Finwë were the three elven ambassadors taken by Orome the Hunter to come back to Valinor and see the trees. These three elven ambassadors returned and began to bring their people with them back to Valinor to live amongst the Valar in splendor and glory. Ingwë became the king of the Vanyar elves, who pretty much stayed in Valinor and didn't involve themselves much again in Middle-earth. Elwë was the one who never made it back. He stopped off to gawk at Melian for 200 years in Beleriand, and when he came out, he decided to just settle there and make this his home and become the king of the Teleri elves. Elwë changed his name to Thingol, and only ever had one child, Luthien, who was half-elf and arguably half-Maya spirit on her mother's side. He founded the kingdom of Doriath, the capital of which was Menegroth, and his wife Melian put up a magical enchantment surrounding the forest which prevented any and all unauthorized entry into the kingdom, which was called the Girdle of Melian. Finwë is the one who gets the bulk of attention here, because from his loins sprang most of the drama that happened in the First Age. Finwë was king of the Noldor, and he had 3 sons and 2 daughters. The one child he had with his first wife was Fëanor, who we'll get into shortly. With his second wife, he had 2 sons and 2 daughters. Sorry to say, the majority of attention goes to patrilineal descent, so we won't be focusing much on daughters here unless they were of note in the books. The 2 sons that Finwë had with his second wife were Fingolfin and Finarfin. Finwë was killed by Morgoth after the destruction of the 2 trees, and was the first murder in Valinor. Fëanor, Finwë's first son, and the first in line to the crown of the Noldor, had 7 sons of his own. They were Maedhros, Maglor, Celegorm, Caranthir the Shit-Talker, Curufin, Amrod, and Amras. The 7 sons of Fëanor swore an oath with their father, after the happenings in Valinor, that they would forever hunt down and pursue the Silmarils, and treat anyone who got in their way as enemies and make war. This was called the Oath of Fëanor, and it goes along with the Doom of Mandos, the curse which forever plagued the houses of the Noldor. As a reminder, the Silmarils were the 3 magical gems which Fëanor made using light from the 2 trees, Laurelin and Telperion, and these were items of such indescribable value that much of the world gets torn apart for their sake. Fëanor died to wounds inflicted by a heavy balrogging in front of Angband. Fingolfin, Finwë's second son, second in line to the crown of the Noldor, had 3 sons and 1 daughter. His sons were Fingon, Turgon, and Argon, and his daughter was Aredel. Aredel, you may recall, was tricked into marrying the dark elf Eol, and they had a son named Maeglin. Watch out for Maeglin later in the series. Fingolfin led the portion of the Noldor who Fëanor had betrayed at the crossing of the Helcaraxe across the grinding ice into Beleriand, and upon Fëanor's death became the king of the Noldor in Beleriand by near-universal decree. He fell in one-on-one combat versus Morgoth and died a heroic death, being the first of the lesser races to ever combat and wound the Dark Lord. Finarfin was Finwë's 3rd son, and because he decided to turn back and beg forgiveness of the Valar for his part in the kinslaying at Alqualande, he got to return to Valinor and became the king of the Noldor who remained in Valinor. Finarfin had 3 sons and 1 daughter, none of whom went back to Valinor with him. His sons were Finrod, Angrod, and Agnor, and his daughter was Galadriel. All 4 of them, as I have just said, moved on to Beleriand with Fingolfin. So that covers the 1st and 2nd generation elves. Now let's move on to the 3rd. Remember, I'm only covering what was accomplished up to where we're currently at in the story. Turgon, Fingolfin's son, founded the city of Gondolin within the mountains of the Chrysogrim. He had a daughter named Idril, whom Maeglin lusted after. Finrod, Finarfin's son, founded the city of Nargothrond to the west of Doriath, and was widely referred to as Felagund because that is the name the dwarves gave him after they finished the sweet contract work on that glorious city, and he dug that title. Fingon didn't found anything, but he did become the king of the Noldor after his papa Fingolfin's death. By that point, he had already won renown for his daring rescue of Maedhros, one of Fëanor's 7 sons, from the spires of Thangorodrim. The 7 sons of Fëanor, again, Maedhros, Maglor, Celegorm, Caranthir the Shit-Talker, Curufin, Amrod, and Amros, are all more or less at large within the territories of Beleriand, being guest to various elven lords or just living where they may. They continue to be angry at anyone who talks about getting a Silmaril, as we saw in the last episode. I can't really spend too much time talking about the human lineages, because humans die so swiftly in comparison to elves that it's really hard to keep track of family lines. The only human of note who is present in the narrative currently is Beren, son of Barahir. Barahir was the king of the lands of Dorthonion, until Morgoth unleashed Dagor Bragollach, the Battle of Sudden Flame. During that hectic, crazy war, Barahir saved Finrod Felagund's life, and was given a ring which signified the friendship of the House of Finarfin. Beren inherited this ring and used it as a tool for political clout when dealing with Thingol and Felagund. So to recap, currently in the story, we have Fingon up in Hithlum, being the king of the Noldor in Beleriand. We have Turgon holed up nicely in Gondolin, with his daughter Idril dealing with Leers from creepy cousin Maeglin. We have Thingol in the kingdom of Doriath, currently dealing with his rage at Luthien and Beren falling in love, having just sent out Beren on a quest to retrieve a Silmaril from Morgoth, and thusly making himself a target of the Sons of Fëanor. And we have Finrod Felagund, who is still the king of Nargothrond, but has temporarily stepped down to go help Beren on his quest, leaving his brother Orodreth in charge back home. Nargothrond is now also a target of the Sons of Fëanor, because Felagund agreed to help Beren secure that Silmaril, and in no way implied that he was going to try and get said Silmaril back to the Seven. Currently, both Finrod Felagund and Beren are trapped in a dungeon of Sauron's in Dorthonion, awaiting their turn to be eaten by a werewolf. So I hope that clears it all up. Nobody has yet raised any complaints, but I felt like it was a good time to just recap the Elven family tree briefly, and get a sense of where we've come from and where we are so far. So thank you all for watching. Once again, I am Alex, also known as Solanus Dracone, and this has been All Things Lord of the Rings. Goodbye.